We can now pick up these seeds, plant them, and the animation plays, but they will not grow at all unless I go over here and pick up this watering can and right click on them to water them, and then they will start growing. So to continue our project right here, we're going to start off by dragging some new resources into our tutorial resources folder. So just drag in the corn seed bag and the watering can. Go into the material and make sure it's unshaded. Do the same for the watering can. And on the seed bag title, we want to press the texture and turn off MIP maps and filter. Then we add a new scene that's going to be a 3D scene, and we go ahead and change this right off the bat to a static body. Drag on the watering can and then add a collision shape. I'm going to make the shape a box shape, and to be able to see this box shape more clearly, I'm going to go into the default environment and turn off the background color. Then I will just fit this box shape to the watering can. That's good enough, and I can rename this watering can and save it in scenes as watering can. Then I will add a new script to it, put that in the scripts folder, name it watering can is fine, and we can just delete all of this. And I want to be able to do 3 things with this item. I want to be able to pick it up and place it and use it. And I want 2 references up here. The first one is a reference to the collider, and the second one is a reference to the animation player of the watering can. And you can't see that right here, but if we right click the watering can model and press editable children, we will be able to see all of the pieces of the watering can, including the animation player right here. And these functions will be called from the player's interactor right here. Now when we pick up these items, we want them to be in a certain spot on our player. So on the interactor, we will right click and add a spatial node, which I will call item spot. And then I will just drag this item spot a little bit to the left, a little bit down, and a little bit forward. So it's in front of the player right there. Now that we have our item spot on the interactor, let's get a reference to it. And then we also need to know if we're currently holding an item and what that item is. So we'll add 2 more variables. One bool that'll tell us if we're holding an item or not, and then one reference to the currently held item that we will set later. Now for our interact function to be able to check what we're hitting, we're going to have to add a different layer to this watering can. So layer 1 is the environment, layer 2 is our crops, so I will take the 3rd layer, which has a value of 4. So we just press the 3rd layer, and I think now is a good time to name our layers as well. So go into project settings, scroll down until you get to 3D physics, and then layer 1 was our environment, layer 2 was our crops, and layer 3 was our items. So now, if we press the watering can and we hover over these, it will say items, and crops, and environment. So it's a bit easier to understand now what we're doing. So let's jump back into the interactor script on the player, and I'm not going to change any of this because I still want you to be able to harvest the crops, but I will add down here, if we don't hit a crop with our raycast and we're not holding an item, we will check for an item to pick up. So just like here, we can actually copy this. Let's rename this to item result, and we're going to raycast to the 3rd layer, which has a value of 4. So in the interactor, we write raycast 4. And then if we hit an item with our raycast, we can double check so the item has the method pickup, and then if it does have the method, we just call the method. And then also we added these 2 things, so we're going to have to add the current item to be the held item. And remember right here, I forgot it. you have to add collider. So item result.collider.has method. And then item result.collider.pickup. Otherwise we won't get the reference to the actual thing we're colliding. We will just get this raycast, which is a lot of information. Here we add the item to be our held item, and then we will just set isHoldingItem to true since we're now holding an item. But if we don't hit a crop with our raycast and we are holding an item, we will raycast to the environment and see if we can hit the environment. And if we hit the environment, and if the item that we're currently holding has a method called place, we will of course place the held item. And then also set the held item to nothing at all and set isHoldingItem to false. But of course this held item is gonna want to know where it wants to be placed. So inside of the place right here, we will just type in the environment results position. That means the position where our raycast hit the ground. Same thing up here at the pickup. If we pick it up, it's gonna want to know where to put itself. So we can pass in our item spot, which is right here. And with this fixed, we can jump back into the watering can and start fleshing out these functions. So first of all, let me add these in so we can actually use them. I'm just going to call them spot on both of them. And for this, I'm actually going to introduce a new function that I think is very handy. So this function right here is just a simple way to reparent things. Instead of writing all of this every time you want to reparent something properly, you just make your own little function. So we just call this reparent function and we feed in the thing we want to reparent and the thing we want to reparent it to. And then this function will remove the child from the old parent and add it to the new parent. Very simple. And if you don't know what parenting means, this collision shapes parent is the watering can up here. And this watering can meshes parent is also the watering can. So in this node system, the cylinder is the child of skeleton, which is the child of the armature, which is the child of the watering can, which is the child of this watering can. So what this script will do when we call it is to remove the watering can from the world and put it inside of the player item spot right here. And then when we place it down, it will remove it from the item spot and put it back into the world right here. So I'm going to copy this name, and when we pick up the item, we're going to reparent it self to get a reference to ourselves. We're going to reparent ourselves to the spot. And I can just copy that, and in place, we're going to reparent ourselves to the world. And if we write getTree.getRoot, that will get the world's root node right here. So this will reparent this object, which this script is on, to the world, and this will reparent it to the spot that we feed in right there. Also, one thing we have to remember is to disable the collider when we pick it up and enable the collider when we place it down. But only reparenting will not change the position of this object. So what we also want to do is to change its global transform. So when we pick it up, I changed this object's entire global transform to be the spot's global transform. And down here, since we're feeding in a position here and not a object, I will set the global transform origin of this item to the spot when we place it down. So now if we drag in the watering can into the game and try it, we will be able to pick this up and place it down. Now as you can see, when I pick it up, it's facing the wrong direction, so let's change that. We go to the player, and the item spot right here is going to have to turn 180 degrees around, like so. And now when we try the same thing, it will be facing the right direction. So now we can pick it up and put it down again. But of course we want to be able to use it. And to get some use out of this, I'm first actually going to hop into the corn and add one variable called watered. which will be false. And then I'll add a function called water crop. And if we call that function, we will set watered to true. And right here in the prompt text, we can actually change this not ready to needs water. And then in the middle right here, we add an else if. So if it's harvestable, it'll say click to harvest. If it's not harvestable and not watered, it'll say it needs water. But if it's not harvestable and it is watered, it'll just say it's growing. And then I can also go down to the bottom right here and say that if it is harvestable, we will set watered to false. And of course, the whole point of it being watered is for it to grow, and this is where it grows. So if growth value is less than 1 and it is watered, it'll grow. Now if we jump back into the player's interactor right here, I'm actually going to change this plant script. This plant script happens when we right click the mouse button. So if I'm holding an item and right click, I will call the use function on the held item. And if I'm not holding an item, I will do all of this. So now if we're holding the watering can and right clicking, we're calling the use function. But first, I'm gonna feed in a raycast into the use function. So I'll type raycast, and then what do we want to raycast to? The crops, and that is number 2. And then we can access the raycast right here. Let's call it result, and just say if there is a result, and if it has the method water crop, we will water the crop. So now if we try this out, we can plant something and it will not grow. You see it needs water right there. And then I can pick this up, go over here and right click. And when I right click, it starts growing. So it works now, but you don't get any feedback when right clicking except for the text changing. So I'm thinking we're gonna play an animation on the watering can and maybe add some water particles to the plant. Now I've already made animations in Blender for these assets, and they're right here in the animation player. So since we have a reference to the animation player right here, we can just copy that and write in right here, animation player, play, pour. And then also above this, we will actually write animation player, stop. So if it's already playing something, it'll stop what it's playing and play this instead. So now when we try that out, it'll look like this. But I want this animation to be a little bit faster. And that's very easy to do right here in the code in Godot. So we typed in the animation name right there, and then we can type in the blend time, and that means how much it blends between different animations. I usually set this to 0.1, and then right here is the custom speed. So let's double the speed and see how that looks. Now when I plant these and water them, the animation goes on double the speed. You can mess around with this as much as you want, try different things. Now I'm also going to add a particle system to this corn. So let's right click right here and add a child node and search for particles. And I'm going to pick CPU particles because I'm using the GLES2 right here. So I cannot use the GPU particles. And then I will rename these to just particles. And to make particles in Godot, you press the particles node and you go over here, and the first thing you want to do is go down to drawing and press mesh and press new quad mesh. And on this mesh we will make a new spatial material and then open up that spatial material, flags, unshaded. Now we see the particles right there, but we also want to go into the parameters right here and make the billboard mode particle billboard. So now it always faces the camera. And then I'll just press the particles again to go back to this menu. And I want the direction to be Y, not X. And then set the initial velocity to, let's say, 3. Look at that. Now it looks kind of more what I want. But we need to make them smaller. So let's go into the scale and set that to 0.05. And I don't want them to continuously just shoot out. I want to make it a one-shot, and then maybe up the amount a little bit and up explosiveness. So let's press emitting to see how it looks. That looks pretty good. Maybe I'll decrease explosiveness a little bit to 0.5, and I'll decrease the lifetime as well to 0.3. And I don't like the way they're all the same rotation right now. That makes it very obvious that they're just squares. So what I like to do is go into angular velocity and just ramp it up to the max on both of these. And then I can put a little bit of randomness into the scale right here as well. See how that looks. Now they're a little bit bigger and kind of random. That's nice. And then I want them to not just disappear like that. I want them to get smaller with time. So let's add a new curve to the scale amount. Open up the curve and add a point at 0. Add another point right here at 1. And then add another point at 1 over here. Something like this. Let's see how that looks. We could also add some randomness to the velocity, say 0.5. And it'll just make it even more random. And then the final thing I will change is to go down here into color and set it to a nice color. But it does not get that color, even though I set the color right here. That is because I need to go back into drawing and go back into this material, go into vertex color and press use as albedo on. Now when we go back into the particles and emit them, they will have the color that I set right over here. So now in the corn script we will get a reference to our particle system, and then we will emit the particles when they are watered. And I do this by calling particles restart. So now if we try playing this game and planting some seeds, this is how it looks. And now with this system that we've set up for this watering can, we can easily start creating other items that we can pick up and place down and use, just like we use this one, but make it do different things. So now I'm going to show you how to make a seed bag for these corn seeds. So we can't just plant a lot of corn out of nowhere. So the first thing I'm going to do is go into the watering can script, copy this entire script, and then go down here, right click the main folder, create a new folder called script templates. And in the script templates folder I will create a new script called item script template create. And then I open this item script template up by double clicking it, and I just paste in the entire script from the watering can. And then I will just change a few things, since not all of the items that we make will have this pour and water crop. So in the use function I will just remove all of this and write pass instead, but all of the other ones can remain as they are. And then I will also remove the animation player line right here, and this is now our item script template. This means that when I go into scene and press watering can, right click and duplicate and write corn seed bag and open that up, we can first of all remove the watering can script, remove the watering can, and change the name to corn seed bag. And let's go into tutorial resources and drag in the corn seed bag. And then when we add our script to this, we can go into template right here and choose the item script template. And then I will save this script in the scripts folder as corn seed bag. And when I create the script, all of this will already be in place because it uses the exact same things as the watering can. Now I'm gonna jump back into the 3D view right here because we see that the collider is all weird and the corn seed bag's image right here is also very weird. And that is because I've forgotten to go into the seed bag title right here and set the flags to unshaded, and also go into parameters and change the alpha scissoring to 0.01. And it still looks a little bit weird with these things at the edges, so I will go into albedo and check off repeat right here so it won't repeat itself. And then for some reason it's got some vertex coloring on it, so if we just go into vertex color and check this off, it will be much brighter, and that's how we want it. Now I'm gonna press the corn seed bag model right here, turn it 90 degrees like so, and then make this collision shape fit it. And now, without writing any code, we can just drag the corn seed bag scene into the scene and try the game, and we can pick this up and place it down. Now nothing happens if we right click because we haven't implemented that, but just like that we have the same picking up and placing down functionalities as this watering can. Now what we want to do here in this use function is to move over all of the logic from the player's interactor right here, move this straight over to the corn seed bag. So I'm just going to cut this all out and remove that else, and then go into the corn seed bag and just paste it in like so. And we can also remove this one and mark all of that and drag it down one step. Now we don't have a crop to plant instance right here. So let's go back into the player's interactor and just steal this, cut that out, remove those extra lines, and then just paste that in right here. And now it will stop complaining. Since we changed it, we need to press corn seed bag right here. And this is empty, so let's drag in the corn. Now one problem is that this won't work right off the bat because this use function in the corn seed bag and the use function in the watering can wants two different raycasts. So let's go into player, interactor, and here where we call the use function, we will put the raycast 2 as we have, but in front of it we will paste in the raycast 1 and then put a comma between them. So feed in both the environment raycast and the crop raycast. And then we go into the watering can, type environment result, and change that to crop result. And copy that and paste that in at all of these places. So here we use the crop result. We can copy this and do the same thing in the corn seed bag. But here we use the environment result. And now when we try the game, we will be able to pick this up and plant crops. And if we don't have it in our hands, we cannot plant any crops or do anything. Now the final thing I want to do is to add an animation, just like we did with the watering can. Because this corn seed bag model also, if we press editable children, has an animation player with an animation on it. So let's write the exact same thing on ready var, get a reference to the animation player, copy this, and when we use it, we will first of all stop the animation player and then play the plant animation with the custom blend to be 0.1 and the speed to be 2.0. And then finally, I will go back to this default environment, press the color, and put the color back to the sky color I had before. We can now pick up these seeds, plant them, and the animation plays, but they will not grow at all unless I go over here and pick up this watering can and right click on them to water them, and then they will start growing.